Usually when people think about translation, especially if you're just starting out as a linguistics student, you kind of picture this very straightforward mechanical exchange.
Right, like a currency exchange.
Exactly, like currency. You hand over a dollar, you get a euro. You hand over an English word, you get the Arabic equivalent.
Simple.
Right.
It's very comforting to think of language that way, just, a one-to-one dictionary mapping. You consult the ledger, you swap the terms, and the meaning just transfers perfectly intact.
But then you actually try to translate a compliment. Say you're translating a novel, right? And a character calls their colleague a rabbit,
Oh, yeah, that's a classic trap.
or praises someone's vigilance by calling them a watchdog. And suddenly your target audience is deeply offended. That neat currency exchange is just completely broken.
Yeah, you find yourself standing in this massive linguistic minefield of cultural assumptions.
Exactly. And that is exactly our mission today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We are pulling from an incredible stack of sources today to master this concept of pragmatic equivalence.
And it is such a crucial concept for any global communicator.
It really is. We've got a cornerstone 2015 translation journal article by Mohammed Mansouri on cultural bias, plus some fascinating comparative studies on conceptual metaphors for wolves and birds.
Oh, and that visual guide to classical Arabic idioms, that one is just beautiful.
Yes. So we're exploring how classical Arabic and English use the animal kingdom to describe human behavior. Because, as you said, language isn't a neutral mirror.
No, not at all. It's a psychological archive of how a society navigates its environment. And to get to pragmatic equivalence, which basically means you aren't translating the literal words, you're translating the emotional resonance you have to look at the historical landscape.
Right, the literal survival mechanics of a society. Let's test that theory right out of the gate. Linguists call this Zoo-Metaphorical mapping, which is a great term.
It's a mouthful, but it's very accurate.
It is. And the differences between English and Arabic here are just stunning. Think about memory. In English, if you never forget a grudge or a fact, we say you have a memory like an elephant.
Which makes perfect sense within a Western historical framework, right?
Right.
Because that absorbed observations of elephant herds in Africa and India, naturalists noted their incredible long-term memory and these complex matriarchal structures. So the elephant just became the ultimate cognitive vault in the English linguistic imagination.
But classical Arabic doesn't use the elephant. It uses the camel. The proverb translates to more resentful than a camel.
Which I find so fascinating because for the nomadic societies of the Arabian Peninsula, the camel was life.
Totally indispensable.
Exactly. It was your companion for survival in a brutal desert climate. So the observation wasn't just about, cognitive retention like the elephant. It was about behavior.
Like if you mistreated a camel, it didn't just passively remember that you were mean to it.
No, it held a long-lasting, highly strategic grudge. It would wait for the absolute right moment to act on that resentment.
Wow. So the Arabic metaphor carries this sharper, dangerous warning about patience under duress, whereas the English elephant is just like a large hard drive of memories.
That's a great way to put it. The landscape dictates the virtue. We actually see this even more clearly when we look at discipline and productivity.
Oh, the busy bee.
Yes. In English, the ultimate compliment for someone working hard is that they are as busy as a bee. You immediately picture the hive, the agrarian landscape,
The humming, visible collective working together to gather nectar. The focus is entirely on the social structure.
but classical Arabic literature praises a disciplined person by saying they are more precise than an ant.
Wait, really? Not busy, but precise.
Precise. The focus shifts entirely away from that humming collective. It zooms in on the quiet, meticulous, individual calculus of the ant.
Ah, because of the terrain.
Exactly, navigating incredibly harsh, dry terrain, carrying a single grain at a time to prepare for the seasons. It is all about structural discipline and solitary survival.
Okay, I have to push back on this for a second, because we constantly hear these broad sociological generalizations, right? Western individualism versus Eastern collectivism.
Oh, all the time.
But here, the English metaphor elevates the collective bee, and the Arabic metaphor elevates the individual ant. Does this mean our assumptions about those cultural buckets are flipped when it comes to nature metaphors?
It proves you cannot apply those broad sociological buckets to language at all. Survival dictates which specific traits make it into the animalistic thesaurus of a culture.
So in an agrarian or maritime trade society, The collective efficiency of the hive is the most valuable trait to emulate.
Exactly. But in a harsh desert environment, the meticulous, self-reliant precision of the individual ant is what ensures you survive.
That makes so much sense. And we see that same geographic influence with loyalty, right?
Yeah.
English gives us as loyal as a dog.
Which is a very domestic image. The guardian of the hearth, the companion sitting by the fire.
But Arabic elevates the paradigm of loyalty to the horse, more faithful than a horse.
Right, and this isn't a domestic companion. This is a high-stakes battlefield ally.
It's the noble, intuitive partner in a warrior culture. Your survival literally depended on the physical devotion of your mount.
So swapping one animal for another based on geography, camel for elephant, horse for dog, that makes sense. But the translator's real nightmare isn't just swapping animals.
Oh no. It's when one language uses biology and the other language abandons biology completely.
Yes. Achieving pragmatic equivalence sometimes means realizing the target culture doesn't use the animal kingdom for that concept at all.
Think about clumsiness.
Yeah.
Classical Arabic has this proverb that translates to clumsier than a dove.
Which, to an English speaker, sounds bizarre. A dove sounds incredibly elegant,
Right.
peaceful.
Right. But Arab naturalists observe the biological reality of the bird. Doves are terrible architects.
They really are. They build these incredibly flimsy, precarious, negligent nests on narrow ledges.
Just waiting for the eggs to fall out. So the bird is a biological symbol for poorly calculated actions. But if you translate clumsier than a dove into English, the reader will be entirely confused.
They'll think you mean too peaceful, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So to get the pragmatic equivalence, English drops the animal entirely and focuses on human anatomy. We say someone is all thumbs.
Which is such a weird image when you really think about it.
It is. You imagine a human hand stripped of agile fingers, leaving only blunt digits. So you go from avian architectural negligence directly to manual human awkwardness. It's a total structural shift.
We see that same structural shift with clarity. Arabic uses this incredibly vivid biological image, clearer than a rooster's eye.
I love that one.
If you've ever looked closely at a healthy rooster, their eye has this piercing, translucent, glass-like quality. It is intensely organic.
But English abstracts that concept of purity away from biology and moves straight into mineralogy. We say crystal clear.
Right. The culture favors the geometric perfection of polished geology over the vitality of an animal's eye.
But I think the most profound shift is how the two cultures view safety. Arabic says, safer than the gazelles of Mecca.
And that relies on a deep, deep understanding of spiritual geography.
Can you break that down for the listeners?
Yeah, so pre-Islamic and Islamic traditions established Mecca as a sacred precinct. It's a sanctuary zone where hunting or shedding blood is strictly forbidden.
So those gazelles enjoyed absolute, unassailable safety because of a divine decree.
Exactly. The metaphor is built on a spiritual pact of nonviolence, but English relies on the Industrial Revolution and real estate.
As safe as houses.
Yes, it's bricks, mortar, property rights, the legal framework of financial stability.
So to translate that, you're moving from a divine sanctuary protecting wildlife, all the way to the economic security of property ownership. You aren't translating the words at all. You're translating the culturally agreed-upon standard for safety.
Which is why literal translation can completely fail.
And this brings us to a much trickier problem. It's one thing to have a total disconnect, where a dove means clumsy in Arabic, but elegant in English.
Right? You can work around that.
But the real danger is a false friend. It's when both cultures use the exact same animal, but the psychological baggage attached to it is completely opposed.
This is where Mansouri's paper really shines.
Let's look at the linguistics models in our stack for a second. We've got Wisniewski's alignment and comparison model and Glucksberg's interactive property attribution model.
Right, so Wisniewski's model basically says our brains create a mental spreadsheet when we hear a metaphor.
Column A and column B.
Exactly. Column A is the animal, column B is the human. We align the traits, say, the speed of a cheetah, and map it onto a human runner.
And then Glucksberg's model acts like a filter. It suggests the context of the sentence, filters out the irrelevant traits.
Right, so if I say, that defense attorney is a shark, the context filters out the fact that sharks live in salt water.
It only lets through the predatory trait. So, based on these linguistic models, translation should be easy, right?
You would hope so.
Like, if I'm translating an English text into Arabic, and it says he eats like a pig, Glucksberg's model suggests I just add context. I translate it as he is a pig when it comes to his appetite. The context should filter out the religious taboo and just map the gluttony.
But Manzuri's 2015 paper proves that cultural bias operates like a massive cognitive override. It shatters the filter entirely.
It's so fascinating. Because in English, mapping to a pig usually targets physical traits. They're physically dirty or greedy and gluttonous.
But in Arabic, translating pig carries an inescapable religious and moral weight. It implies severe moral looseness, perversion, and depravity.
So even with the added context he's a pig when it comes to his appetite, the Arabic reader still processes it as a severe moral and religious failing.
The cultural bias overrides the context you provided. The bias destroys the intended meaning.
And Manzuri highlights another brilliant example of this, the rabbit problem. This is my favorite part of the source material. Imagine translating a simple phrase like, "My neighbor is a rabbit."
Oh boy. Yeah, to a Western reader, a rabbit implies someone who is really timid, shy, maybe easily frightened.
Or, leaning into Western pop culture, maybe it means they're highly sexualized or have a lot of kids.
But in Arab culture, the rabbit is strongly associated with burrowing, gnawing, and taking up physical space.
So saying my neighbor's a rabbit means your neighbor is invasive.
Exactly. They are a territorial competitor creeping into your space.
That is a massive misunderstanding waiting to happen. You think you are calling someone shy, and you are actually calling them an invasive threat.
It's a translator's nightmare.
So how do you solve the pig or the rabbit problem? Do you just find a different animal?
Sometimes you have to engage in what Manzuri calls de-animalizing, or reducing to sense. You literally erase the animal entirely to save the meaning.
Give us an example.
Look at the English term, consumer watchdog.
Right, an agency that protects buyers from corporate fraud.
If you translate watchdog literally into Arabic, the cultural bias against dogs, which traditionally associates them with lowness or wretchedness, just takes over.
So to an Arabic speaker, a literal consumer watchdog sounds like what? A wretched spying dog sniffing around people's business?
Exactly. It sounds malicious, not protective.
Not exactly the vibe a consumer protection agency is going for.
Definitely not. So you have to de-animalize it. You reduce it to the sense of the phrase, translating it simply as a watchful eye.
The animal is gone, but the pragmatic equivalence, the actual intention of safety and vigilance is preserved.
Exactly.
Now, animals can clearly divide us linguistically, but our sources also reveal that some animals act as profound mirrors for shared human experiences.
The wolf is such a brilliant case study in this. It ties into conceptual metaphor theory and the great chain of being.
Both cultures look at the exact same animal, and they agree on its baseline meaning, but they diverge completely on how humans should react to it.
Right. When it comes to universal deceit, both Arabic and English map the wolf to hypocrisy and false threats.
The Quran, in Surah Yusuf, features Joseph's brothers falsely claiming that a wolf ate him.
Right. They use the wolf as a scapegoat to cover up their own internal deceit and betrayal.
And we see the exact same mapping in the Bible. Matthew 7.15 warns of false prophets who are wolves in sheep's clothing.
So looking at these ancient texts as literary and cultural archives, the wolf is the ultimate symbol of predatory intent cloaked in innocence. The fear of the wolf is totally universal.
But how the two cultures respond to that fear is where the divergence happens, and it really reveals their core values.
Arabic proverbs about wolves focus heavily on communal vigilance. There's a proverb, if you mention the wolf, prepare the stick.
I love that. And then there's a famous fable whose moral is, I was eaten the day the white bull was eaten.
That fable is incredible. It's about a wolf who manipulates a herd of differently colored bulls, right?
Yeah, he convinces them to let him eat them one by playing on their divisions.
And the moral is that the moment you let the first member of your community fall, you have all fallen. The wolf represents the fatal danger of disunity.
So the Arabic wolf is a community stress test. It's a reminder that you have to stick together or you die.
But the English wolf is almost the exact opposite. English idioms celebrate the solo survivalist.
We admire the lone wolf. It's a badge of honor for someone who operates outside the pack, who is self-reliant and independent.
And on the flip side, we have the phrase throw to the wolves, which is the ultimate expression of individual abandonment.
You see this heavily in Western literature, too. Like Jack London's The Call of the Wild. The wolf represents an embrace of primal individual survival.
So the Arabic wolf says, stay with the herd to survive. The English wolf says, leave the herd to find your true strength.
Same animal, same fear, totally different survival philosophy. Just perfectly illustrates how language archives our psychological history.
It really does. Now, we've seen animals that confuse us and animals that highlight our divergent survival strategies. But there is one animal in our sources that allows for absolute beautiful harmony between these two distinct linguistic worlds. Yes. The bird functions as what linguists call a polysemous signifier.
Meaning it carries multiple, universally understood meanings across vast divides of geography and time.
Exactly. Look at English Romanticism. You've got William Wordsworth writing about the cuckoo, Percy Bysshe Shelley and the skylark, John Keats and the nightingale.
And then look at classical and modern Arabic poetry. Abu Tamam, Ibrahim Tuqan, writing about the bulbul, Natsik al-Malaka.
Across both cultures, the bird universally encodes themes of transcendence, joy, and liberation from the heavy temporal world.
When Shelley writes of the skylark, or Tuqan writes of the bulbul, they are both looking upward. They're finding a symbol of pure, uncorrupted emotion that escapes the gravity of human suffering.
But it isn't just about joy either. The bird also serves as an incredible shared psychological shelter for grief.
The parallels in human interiority here are just stunning.
Take Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem, The Raven. The narrator is sitting in the dark, consumed by sorrow over a lost love, and this bird arrives. The narrator projects all of his psychological torment onto the bird, finding this strange, dark comfort in its presence.
And you find that exact same projection in classical Arabic poetry. Specifically, Abu Faris al-Hamadani.
Oh, his poem is heartbreaking.
It is. He has a poem where he's trapped in sorrow, away from his beloved, and he hears a dove crying nearby. And he speaks to the dove, asking if it feels his pain, projecting his exact psychological state onto the bird. He says, "Come, I need to share my worries with you."
It is the exact same human impulse Poe had centuries later and thousands of miles away.
They both use the bird to externalize their grief. Because the bird is uniquely capable of flight, it represents a freedom from the temporal pain that the human poet is trapped in.
It is a perfect moment of pragmatic emotional equivalence between two entirely different worlds.
Truly. So if you take away anything from this deep dive into pragmatic equivalence, it's the realization that language is not a neutral dictionary.
No, it is a living, breathing psychological archive.
You can't just learn what an animal is. You have to learn what it means to the people who lived, fought, and survived alongside it. Imagine translating a corporate document and coming across a term like consumer watchdog.
The linguistic mechanics of the sentence might be perfectly clear, but the cultural resonance is a trap waiting to spring.
Exactly. It forces us to ask a larger question about the future of language itself.
This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. For thousands of years, our deepest, most visceral metaphors for human behavior have been drawn from the animal kingdom.
Right, we mapped our courage to lions, our deceit to wolves, our diligence to bees and ants.
But as modern urbanization and technology increasingly remove us from daily physical interactions with wildlife, are we nearing the end of zoo-metaphorical mapping?
Wow, that is a staggering thought.
Right. 50 years from now, when the natural world is even further removed from our daily corporate or digital lives, will we stop calling people sly foxes or busy bees?
Will the dictionary of human behavior shift entirely?
Might we start saying someone is as resentful as an algorithm or as precise as a microchip?
If our metaphors are born from our environment, our new digital environment is bound to rewrite the way we describe the human soul.
We might literally be witnessing the slow extinction of the animal idiom.
That is profound. Well, we hope the next time you hear a common phrase, whether it's about a memory like an elephant or a lone wolf, you take a second to listen to the echoes of the culture that created it.
Because translation isn't just a currency exchange. It is trading in the very history of how we see the world.
Beautifully said. Stay curious, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.